Welcome to this special edition of the Pitch to Post preview podcast, where we're looking ahead to the Carabao Cup final between Man City and Tottenham on Sunday, which you can watch live on Sky Sports at 4:30. I'm Peter Smith, and I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Sky Sports pundit Jamie Redknapp. How are you doing, Jamie?
Hi, Peter. Very well, good. All yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you. It's just been a crazy, chaotic week, isn't it, really? It's been non-stop, and definitely these two teams right in the thick of the action. What have you made of it? If we talk about the European Super League, first of all, and all the fallout we've seen from that.
Incredible week. I can't quite remember one so busy, and one where a story like Jose Mourinho getting sacked would actually get overshadowed. Who would have ever thought that? And the Super League fallout now is obviously, everything has calmed down a little bit because emotions are running so high. And I think to a certain extent, that's good. I think everybody has to take stock. We're going to learn a lot of lessons from this. Anybody that thought that their owners just love their club and they're only doing it for the best thing and for the fans, I think we've all realised that certainly isn't the case. And they've been put well and truly in check. The future, I don't think it's the last we're ever going to hear about Super League. There will be no doubt at all. There will be some kind of repercussions for this in terms of wanting to do another league. It won't die because I think the Champions League and the format of it is people will want to change it, and these owners will want a bigger piece of the pie going forward. But I think they've realised that it will not be at the fans' detriment. Fans are the most important people in this game, always will be. And fan power stood up this week probably more than it ever has done. And I think the big six have realised that they can't just take liberties. They can't flex their muscles, expect everyone to just, toe the line. And well, in fact, it's not even the big six. For a lot of the clubs that aren't, would arguably say, well, we've had more success than a couple of the clubs that were involved in this discussion. So, yeah, thankfully for football and everybody concerned, we can move on now. And what you can do with the fines and stuff like that, Peter, we'll wait and see. I mean, if they did fine the clubs, I would love to see the fine go maybe lower down the chain to the lower league clubs that need the money just to keep them financially stable. In terms of youth development, inner city football development with young kids, there must be some ways that they can, if there is to be fines, because with these guys got so much money, hit them in the pocket, it's not really going to matter. But let's make sure wherever the money goes, it's going to go to certainly a worthy cause.
Yeah, I was at Tottenham for their midweek game against Southampton, and before the game there were protests there. And yeah, there is this feeling that hopefully something positive can come out of what has been a pretty nasty week, really, in terms of some of the intentions behind those plans.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've never been a fan of the old sack the board. I think we have to be very careful. People have got emotional this week, and rightly so. But, as an example, the Liverpool board, and I think, yes, they've made an almighty mistake. They've come out now and apologised. But I think if you look at what they've done since they've taken the club, they've done a great job. They've spent a lot of money. They've brought in great players. With Jurgen Klopp there, it's just been a marriage made in heaven. So I think they've got, in the nicest possible way, a bit of money in the bank. And for people to say, well, that's the end of them, or they shouldn't be back, they should never be in Liverpool, I don't agree with that. I don't live in the city, but I love the club. And I think that the fans there, as much as people say, oh, they won't forget this, they're also very good, and they're also very kind, good people in terms of they love their club. And whoever comes, if they were to, well, they can't get rid of them because they own the club. But if they were to maybe think, well, our time has come up and they sell, make no mistake, the next owners are going to be doing it for money as well. They're not going to be a Jack Walker that buys the club because he loves it, because no one could afford it that's in that position. So I just think we have to be a little bit careful. I think they've learned their lesson, and it's almost like a slap on the wrist, and they won't do it again because, as we know, you have to be very careful. But that old sack the board adage of many years ago just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was one of the signs outside Tottenham said, Daniel Levy, thanks for no memories, obviously pointing to no silverware, but did strike me they were in the Champions League final a couple of seasons ago. So big important decisions to be made by the likes of Daniel Levy in terms of repairing that damage and where these clubs go next. He obviously made a big call on Monday as well in sacking Jose Mourinho. I'd had a week off, came back to European Super League, and Jose Mourinho had been sacked, and I felt like I needed another week off. So, Jamie,
no, Peter, yeah.
It's crazy, wasn't it? But how do you explain the decision to us, Jamie, then, to sack a manager who's won 12 of his 14 cup finals just a few days before a trip to Wembley?
Yeah, I can't. I mean, it was amazing. Don't get me wrong. I think it just shows you how they must have felt about Jose Mourinho as a manager. That the player power is obviously a big thing at Tottenham, and they probably felt that it was the best thing to do in terms of maybe not having him at the club because of maybe the situation with the players that were already there, maybe not being happy. Player power is apparent, but certainly at Tottenham, I was there for a while, and I did notice that with Tottenham and the way that the club was run, they are very keen to speak to players, get their opinions. How is the manager? Has he lost the dressing room? And I think that was something that they probably looked at. And in the case of Jose Mourinho, if Daniel Levy felt that he wasn't the manager and the players weren't getting the best out of them, there's no doubt that's one of the reasons why he would have sacked him. And they probably feel that by bringing in a new manager, quick uplift, it might give them that sort of Di Matteo effect. You know, when he won the Champions League after taking over from Villas-Boas, and that might be what they're thinking. And that probably just shows you how little they rated Jose Mourinho and the way that he was playing. They probably feel by playing a more attacking football, let the players go and be a bit more expansive, enjoy the game. It might be a better way for them to get a result.
Come on to what is obviously a really positive story with Ryan Mason in a moment. But just finally on Mourinho, Jamie, where does he go here? Because it seems to me there can't be many Premier League clubs certainly willing to pay the big wages for a manager who's had a couple of tough jobs in a row now and has left quite a negative feeling at the two clubs that he's left as well, in Man United and Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he leaves a cloud over every club he goes to. You know, there's very rarely does he not have fallouts with people, and that's just something that just seems to happen with it. But one thing you can't do is knock his record. You know, he's won trophies wherever he's gone. And I think what he needs to do is win early. Otherwise, the longer it goes on without him winning, it becomes more of a toxic situation. And I think that's what certainly happened at Tottenham. And then the blame game starts, the usual behavioural pattern starts to happen. We've all witnessed, and I've obviously watched it for many years now. But to say that he won't manage in the Premier League again is just utter rubbish. Of course he could. There'll always be, there's a shortage of managers out there. There's not enough great managers for you to say, oh, Jose Mourinho will never manage in the Premier League. There's every chance. It might not, you know, and it might be in a few years' time just a job that he fancies. He's got enough money to just choose what he wants. Could he maybe end up at a PSG or another big club? Of course he can, because he's a charming guy. He's got a lot about him. He's got a lot to offer. And maybe, you know, if he came back again to the Premier League in a couple of years' time, I mean, I felt after the Man United job, that was maybe him done. And he ends up at Tottenham. You just never know in football. You never know. A Leicester, as an example, maybe a Brendan Rodgers in a couple of years' time wanted to go somewhere else, or things didn't work out. Jose Mourinho will be on everyone's lips because of his CV. Because time is a great healer, and when you actually analyse it again, and we quickly do, you look at what he's achieved in the game, and there's been a few moments when, of course, we'll remember the bad stuff, but we'll also remember him, what he did at Porto, you know, what he did at Chelsea, what he did at Real Madrid, and Inter Milan. We will remember those moments. So I think it's just a case of just being a little bit careful right now and not making too many sweeping statements, because his CV is brilliant. Of course, it comes at a cost sometimes, but he's a winner. He's a winning manager, and you know, and I think he's also, when he's in a good form, he's also very good for the game. It's when the clouds come over and he's not winning and he doesn't like that, because that's maybe in his mentality. He finds it really hard to adjust and not revert to type.
Well, we talk about unpredictable, about where he might go next. I'm pretty sure Ryan Mason didn't think he'd be taking charge of Tottenham at the start of this season. Just 29 years old, youngest Premier League manager ever. And started with the win against Southampton, that 2-1 comeback win. Jamie, it's an incredible story, really, isn't it? After he was forced to retire at 26. He's been at Spurs, head of player development there, working with the young players, bringing players through. And he's obviously been trusted for the final few games of this season. Straight in against Southampton with the win, as I said there, and then up against it on Sunday against Guardiola with his 24 major trophies. It's a bit of a whirlwind. It must be for Ryan Mason this week.
Oh yeah, I mean, he must be in a bit of a tumble dryer, if you like, just being thinking, wow, what's happened here? I have to be honest. I could tell you, we're meant to be a crossing. I didn't even know he was coaching. I didn't know that he was managing, coaching at any level. And for him to get this opportunity, I'm pleased, obviously, to see Ledley King still there. I'd like to, Robbie Keane is a player that I'd maybe like to have seen got involved in some capacity as well. I'm a big fan of Robbie, and he's always been a big supporter of the club and what he achieved there. But I think for Ryan, it's a case of not even so much about what he's going to do. It's about what the players are going to do. There was a really telling moment in the interview after the game when where when Gareth Bale said, "We attack, we're Tottenham, that's what we do." And it may be in other words, but that's what he alluded to. And that is exactly what Tottenham have to do. They have to play with a bit of flair. And with Jose, there's no doubt there'd have been a load of sessions, and I've spoken to people involved at the club that the sessions weren't very expansive. They were maybe about how we stop other teams. And Tottenham, whatever they feel, and also a perception, and also the fans, they want to win, but they want to play a style of football. And the style of football they were playing under Jose was not, they weren't winning and they were playing poor football. It was awful to watch. And I don't think he was letting players do their thing. So to a certain extent, Ryan's job is to just free them and go, look, just play, enjoy it. Don't worry about making mistakes. If we make a mistake, someone cover. When we haven't got the ball, work hard and get it back as soon as possible. But play with a little bit of flair. And I think that's what's going to be so interesting and exciting for Tottenham fans, because he's not going to have a lot of time to coach them. People ask, well, what did he do differently against Southampton? Not a lot, really. He played Højbjerg and Lo Celso and then Ndombele in midfield. Apart from that, there wasn't a great deal he could do. You know, we didn't see Dele Alli. Harry Winks came on towards the end. But what we did see was Gareth Bale in brilliant form, Peter. And he'll be looking forward to this game the weekend. He'll be thinking against whoever's left back, get the ball out to me and I can do some magic. Because some of the things he did in that game were vintage Gareth Bale. And it just makes you wonder why the previous manager wasn't playing him more. Because I've heard a lot of people, why does he look so happy when he's on the bench? Because he probably just thought, what can I do? I can't stand there and start moaning and crying. He's not that sort of a guy. He wants to play. And he showed that the other day against Southampton because he was the best player on that pitch by a mile.
Well, I might certainly need him on Sunday then, Jamie, especially with the news that we're getting that Harry Kane hasn't trained on Friday. There's doubts whether he's going to train on Saturday ahead of the game. Obviously, this ankle problem, the ankle problems just keep haunting him, don't they? How do Tottenham approach this one? Can they really take that Tottenham style that we've talked about, Ryan Mason trying to bring back and being on the front foot when they don't have Harry Kane against a team of Man City's quality?
Well, it's difficult because obviously to beat Man City, you've got to defend for your life. And Tottenham did have success beating them under Jose, and that was by defending in numbers, playing almost, in a situation where Højbjerg and Sissoko went into defensive positions when they didn't have the ball and almost played like a back six. And it worked for them. And then they hit them on the counter-attack with 2 goals, in the last 2 home games. So they're going to have a bit of luck and play with some confidence defensively because they haven't looked like keeping clean sheets. First half, Southampton had so many chances. And this Man City team asked so many questions of you. Going forward, you need the pace of some. Villa looked at it the other day and exploited that side where it was no doubt at all with the goal that they scored. That they were looking at maybe what Chelsea did in a cup final where they kept getting down that right side in behind John Stones, who obviously can't play, so that'll probably be Diaz playing on the right and Laporte on the left. But that will be an area where they'll believe they've got to work Son and maybe get more into those positions if Harry Kane isn't fit, and just defend well and on the counter-attack, because City plays such a high line. That is where possibly they can get some success. But the problem is you've got to get the ball first because Man City control the ball so well and don't let you get hold of it. And it becomes quite demoralising at time and a little bit, I would actually use the word embarrassing because they make you feel so inadequate as a team. Like even what they did to Villa when it was 10v11, they couldn't get the ball off them. So Spurs have to make sure that they're comfortable defensively, don't concede early and stay in the game. Because as I say, the whole Di Matteo effect of this, it has a strange feeling about it. Like, of course, I fancy City, they're the red hot favourites, but stranger things have happened, and especially after last week's game against Chelsea, that will give Tottenham a little bit of hope that something possibly could happen for us. If they haven't got Kane, you'd fear from even more.
Yeah, I mean, I even think back as well to last season's FA Cup semi-final against Arsenal, where really no one gave Arsenal a chance of beating Man City to make the final, and they pulled it off. So these one-off games, it can happen, can't it? And
yeah.
However, there has been positive injury news for Man City with De Bruyne and Aguero training on Friday. So while Tottenham sweat on Kane, City is pleased to have those 2 key players back for them as well. You mentioned the Villa game there, Jamie. Obviously, you covered it for Sky Sports, and you were singing the praises of Phil Foden after the game. He could win his 4th League Cup before his 21st birthday this Sunday. How incredible was that?
Well, it's greedy. That's what it is. It's greedy, Peter. But last year he was amazing in the final. I don't know if I'm sure you remember. He was brilliant. He played on the right that day and was just mesmerising. I haven't seen many players that have just got such amazing spatial awareness in a long time. He knows exactly where he is, where players are. He brings them, he sucks them in to try and make a tackle, and he just nips it over them. And you could see, what he did like the week in midweek to Matty Cash. And I like Matty Cash, but he couldn't get near him. And the tackle that he got sent off with was pure frustration because he's got this young kid doing bits to him, and he's thinking, I've had enough of this, and that's why he lost his head. Yeah. And he's a frightening player, absolutely frightening. If his talent and ability and knowledge and will to win and aggression to get after the ball can carry on in this manner, it's limitless what he can achieve. It really is, and I think he's got the right manager. He's got the right players around him. It's a brilliant story to see a young homegrown player achieving so much at a club, because we all do talk. City get a lot of stick. Yeah, they've earned they've bought success. Of course they are, but who hasn't? Most of the, in terms of most of the teams. But to have a homegrown star like this is a brilliant story, because every kid there, and I know that academy at Man City is brilliant. They're bringing through some young superstars, but they look up to him and they'll think, if he can do it, so can I. So it's so good for the club. It's great having the De Bruynes, and it's great having the Vincent Kompanies of the past and the David Silvas and the Agueros, but to have one of their own doing it, there's nothing better than that.
Now, this sounds a little bit silly off the back of everything you just said, Jamie, but Pep's team lineups are so unpredictable, aren't they? So will he actually start on Sunday? Because he has had a habit of leaving Foden out at times when we've expected him to play.
Yeah, and there's a protection element to that, Peter, and he's also right now. The league. I think the Villa result pretty much secured the league, but the Champions League is their priority. So he will look at it like managers have he'll have all the remaining fixtures in his changing room and in his office at work, and he'll be looking at all the games and prioritising where he needs them. Now, Kevin De Bruyne would be a huge risk to play in this final. If Kevin De Bruyne was 100% fit, then maybe we might not see Foden. But the fact that Foden didn't play against Chelsea and he came on and really single-handedly got them back into the game with his performance, so they didn't get the result. I really think he starts in this one. I'll be amazed if he doesn't. I'll be amazed if he risks Kevin De Bruyne. I think he'll be on the bench if they need him. Sterling's an interesting one. We spoke about Sterling the other day and why he's not playing as much. But since there was a game, I can't remember the Man United game, but since then we've hardly seen him, and that's not. This is one of their best players. A few months ago. So you never quite know with Pep. But one thing I do know: if you're not pulling your weight, if you're not playing well, he doesn't play you. It's not that he holds grudges; he just wants you to do the right things. And I think it would be. I just don't see a team sheet without either Foden or De Bruyne. I think one of them has to start. And the other player, there's a couple other players. I think in Bernardo Silva, it sounds strange, but I always think when Kevin De Bruyne doesn't play, I see a better Bernardo Silva, because I think he plays in that position and he has to then take responsibility. I think Gundogan, I always get his name wrong, Peter. How do you pronounce it?
Gundogan?
Gundogan, yeah, that'll do. He is one of my favourite midfield players right now. And people are talking about him even winning the Player of the Year. And you have to be very careful when you say statements like this. But I watched him against Villa the other day. Now, my favourite over the last 20 years, my two favourites have been Xavi and Iniesta. The way that he manipulates the ball, I'm sure that Pep must think he has now become his Xavi and Iniesta in that place, in that midfield. It's a joy to watch him. I'm not saying he's as good as them, because people, I know what the social media guys are like, but he has elements and the skill set that they do. And I'm sure Pep has worked with him, although he's an experienced player. There's a reason why I think he's got better and better this year, because there is that Xavi and Iniesta role that he's playing now, and the way that he moves the ball, he takes it off the line, is effortless, and he has been magnificent for City this year.
Yeah, so many talented players in that squad, and we could go on and on talking about the brilliant seasons that so many of them have had. We started the podcast by saying how many struggles Tottenham have had in recent weeks. So what's your prediction, Jamie? I know you said that anything can happen in a one-off game. Do you see Tottenham upsetting the odds this weekend?
I think if they had a fit Harry Kane, I would say they've got every chance. I think, of course, City are favourites, but without a fit Harry Kane, it just feels they're just they're just lacking in that bit of confidence still. And I just think City are just a different class. Anybody else, I think this is a 50-50 game with Tottenham, because I've always said it. I think they've got a good squad. But against City, the way they control the ball, I just don't see them making the same mistake as what they made last week when they lost to Chelsea. But as I say, there is this strange thing in football that can happen. Whereas someone like Di Matteo, when he won that Champions League, I remember them, they played that second leg, I think it was against, was it Benfica or someone? And they somehow managed to get through. No, Napoli, where they beat Napoli. And you thought, well, this is strange. And I remember Gary Neville saying it's written in the stars. You know, sometimes you just don't know in football. You know, this could end up being six of the most amazing, weeks for Ryan Mason. Who knows? So let's see what happens. But as I say, I do think Man City are red hot favourites, and I think we'll see him lifting the trophy again.
Yeah, 2008 was when last time Spurs got their hands on the silverware on the League Cup. And Man City, of course, going for 4 in a row. So we'll see who lifts the trophy on Sunday. It's on Sky Sports. Man City versus Tottenham on Sunday, 4:30. And we'll be looking into that one. Jamie, thanks very much for joining us on the podcast this week.
Thanks, guys. Nice to see you. See you soon, Peter.